Okay, so our final speaker, no, not our final speaker, but our next speaker is going to give us an industry perspective as well. Now, Jørgen Kildahl has done the most enormous amount of work in terms of the restructuring of the European energy market and knows everything there is to know about this, and has worked at E.ON, and you can ask him loads of questions on that too, ladies and gentlemen. But today, we've asked him to put a different hat on and to look at something we keep talking about, which is digitalization, AI. What is it going to release? What is the promise? And he's going to talk to us as chairman of a small company called eSmart Systems. Jørgen.
Thank you so much, Nisha. So I will go right to it. So after 25 years in the executive positions in the energy business, I decided to step out because something was happening that I didn't really understand, and was on the technology side. So in my short intervention, I would share with you why I truly believe that artificial intelligence is a key to build a sustainable society. And my main messages are quite simple. We already have AI-based tools that we can use in the power sector that would massively reduce waste and thereby costs. Secondly, I would urge us to, in the planning for the future system, to include the innovation factor, which we're currently not doing. But let's start with a few data points. We have already talked about that, so I will be very brief, but we can already feel the impact of climate change. So the 18 of the last 19 years are the warmest ever recorded. Full stop, we have a big problem. And we already identified 2 sectors are contributing to 2/3 of the emissions. It's fuel-based power and heat, and the transportation. So what we have to do is, of course, as we already know, and I'm building a logic here, so I will not spend much time on this, but we have to substitute fossil fuels with renewables, and we need to do it fast. I will build my logic around the grids, because I think that's the key. We witnessed a conventional revolution. This is conventional technology. It's been driven by subsidies, and it will go on. EU plan to invest 42 billion euros a year over the next decade in generation. And renewables, as we know, are intermittent capacity, meaning that these sources are not continuously available. And that increases volatility and is challenging for the grids. Huge investments are made in the grids in order to compensate for this. So what happens with this, when this new reality meets today's grids, where the thinking is based on a one-directional system, centralized optimization top-down. This is how it looks like today. As we cannot control the wind or the sun, we increasingly face higher number of hours with congestions, unbalances, curtailments, instability, negative prices. As peaks often exceed capacity and the grid is designed for the maximum load, we invest. We're pushing that limit. We invest billions, not taking alternatives and innovation into consideration. EU plan to invest 36 billion a year on grid infrastructure in the next decade. Norway alone will invest 145 billion by 2025. That's massive investments. Costs are exploding. The energy bill for the consumer is rocketing, even if the market price on energy is going down. I claim that we are wasting energy resources and money. Applying the old thinking on a completely new concept is amplifying this problem and getting prohibitively expensive. So, as this ranking, Germany, I live in Germany, I lived there for a decade, is the largest laboratory in terms of energy in the world. And they have been a pioneer in this area, fostering PV and wind through subsidies. They spent 26 billion euros a year only on subsidies. They spend 1.4 billion in 2017 just on curtailments and unbalances. And they need to invest billions in grid infrastructure. So how are they doing? This ranking is unfortunately in German because I picked it out of a German newspaper yesterday, but I will briefly translate it. It's a ranking made by the World Economic Forum of 150 nations, and it ranks how is Germany doing. The first point is the prices for the consumer. They rank 87. For the industry, 113. The share of renewable, 55 out of 115. And coal, they rank 96. This is rather dismaying, taking into account the enormous amount of investments that you put into dealing with these problems. Germany has more than 1.5 million photovoltaic installations, and it's ramping up electrical vehicles and decentralized energy generation, also called DERs. This is transforming the grid, making it much, much more complex. Now it's becoming bidirectional, and you know this. So, it's like Uber. One day, I'm the driver of the car, the other day, I'm sitting in the back seat. That's the same with the prosumer. One day I'm consuming, I'm adding to the supply. The other day I'm a consumer. And this is very fundamental. And it has many drivers that I'm sure you're familiar with. Sensors are becoming very cheap. Communication technology is breaking new barriers. Look at the 5Gs in terms of connectivity, latency, and so forth. We got, as we already heard, very efficient decentralized energy resources, electrical vehicles, but more importantly, in this context, we have new tools to digest, analyze, and make use of huge volumes of data. We talk about IoT, big data, and artificial intelligence. And that's the core of it, the artificial intelligence. But due to this instability, in order to get a better grip on the grid, we are rolling out smart meters. EU will roll out 200 million smart meters by 2020. That would cover 72% of the consumers. 40 million gas meters will be rolled out. That is approximately 40% of the consumers. We in Norway have rolled out 3 million. Unfortunately, there is a small snag to it, because this ocean of data that we will get, we cannot, with today's system, turn into valuable insights. And we can't control the system because it's getting too complex. But the cost of gathering, analyzing, and make information out of data is plummeting. And we do have the tools to digest these data and to optimize the system. Instead of the old way, top-down, we can optimize it bottom-up, which we in fact need to do. And we need to steer it more and more bottom-up. And the good thing about AI, it learns. As different as the consumer patterns changes, it will learn. As the weather is changing, it knows. So, as a joke, I would say, going back to Germany, there shouldn't be a surprise that 4:15 every Saturday, there is a huge need for pumps pumping water in Germany. Then 20 million Germans are having a break on a soccer game and they flush their toilets. And you don't really need AI to figure that out, but that's actually the case. Nisha challenged me with two questions. What is IA actually doing? And what has culture to do with it? And this is where I would round off my contribution here. But firstly, on the AI, I find NTNU has a very good description in one of the courses where they say that the basis of artificial intelligence is taken from mathematics, logic, and cognitive science. The subject aims at realizing aspects of intelligent behavior in a computer system. In 2015, I came from Bavaria, where the grids are a mess. They don't have a control. Then I went to Halden, and I joined eSmart. eSmart has been working on this, and it's a kind of a baby from the Empower Horizon 2020 project, and they have developed a solution for this. And I would just quickly point to two points here. The second one, segmentation and profiling. Today you can't segment your customers. You have most of the time only one data point per customer per year. With the smart meters, we have a lot of data points, which in a way is feeding the system. And you can profile it, so you know who would have available resources that could be of use to the grid. And I think that Christian said it, at least for my sake, I would be happy to contribute to the system if I didn't notice it. These systems, they will be able to actually help us doing exactly, the grid owner exactly to do that. Load predictions is a nightmare. You use blueprints today based on historical data. So it's not as interactive as it should be. So what I'm trying to say is that IA can massively reduce waste, and I think we have some good evidence. And it will lead to a higher utilization of resources. Today's grid, and I think that's something we should think about, the transmission grid, you use on average 1/3 of the capacity. And the way we put the dimensions to it is on the marginal load that we put onto it. So shaving off the marginal load would also decrease the investments needed. And we believe that it should be possible to reduce it by 30 to 40% by taking out the flexibility on a lower level and to optimize it better. Also OpEx, we believe could go down, and also the cost of imbalances. So finally, what has culture to do with it? So I worked in this industry for almost a generation, and we are not really famous for agility, and not for innovation, actually. So what we've seen on the PV and the wind is actually driven from the outside of the industry. So I think that we as an industry, we should pick up. We should also redesign regulation, but partly the incentivization is to invest in copper and steel, instead of using software to substitute hardware. And we do have the powerful tools that we needed. And to my second point on the introduction, we need to put pressure on putting innovation as a factor when you're planning, for example, the grid investments going forward. So, the political ambition is to meet 3 objectives called the Trilemma. It's about affordability, sustainability, and security of supply. AI would address all 3 of them. AI actually holds the key to affordable, renewable society and will impact markets, organizations, and regulation. And culture, in a way, is how we act and how we deal with it. I'm impatient. I think we have the tools. I think we should use them. And I think that we should kind of take the invitation for Greta and start this journey and make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Jørgen. Did you hear what he said? You could reduce the peak demand, when all the Germans go at 4:10 to do whatever they do. You can reduce it by 30 to 40% with AI and have a commensurate reduction in costs. That's the first time today I've heard anyone talk about massive cost savings through these. So that's quite exciting. Is it believable? Please test him.